Well, I do that because we also have sheep and goats in the Bible.
因為咧喺聖經裏邊咧有綿羊同山羊嘅故事啊嘛。
And they represent something a little bit different.
佢哋
In Chinese explanation of a sheep and a goat.
佢哋分別係代表唔同嘅嘢嘅喎。
I looked up some Chinese horoscopes on what a sheep was like.
咁啊，你睇 Chinese 哦，你睇通勝啊？
Something like that, horoscope. I looked it up on the internet as research for this message.
咁啊，揾下即係中國人嘅羊係啲咩嚟㗎啦？
So I won't repeat it, but it's very interesting and lots of information. Just can't believe it.
對 Scott 嚟講咧，好有趣啊！嗰啲資料。
The sheep and the goats in the Bible are a little bit more distinctly separated into two kinds, two groups.
喺聖經裏邊咧，綿羊同山羊咧係兩種唔同嘅嘢嚟喎。
Yes, sir. The sheep are good and the goats are bad. Very simply.
綿羊就好㗎啦，山羊就唔好
So
㗎。
I'm going to go with sheep. Happy New Year of the sheep.
咁啊，俾你揀，你梗係揀綿羊啦，係咪
And
啊？
they're cuter too.
而且佢哋得意啲添啫。
Okay. Little baby goats are cute.
但係山羊 BB 都可愛嘅。
The word sheep in the NIV, there's about 200 references in the NIV. The word sheep.
如果喺英文版 NIV 裏邊咧，關於綿羊嘅字咧係大概嘅經文咧大概200個嘅。
Close to 200 references to the word lamb.
如果係羔羊啊或者羊啊，就會係大概190啦。
And shepherd even has more than 100.
而提到牧羊人咧，都超過100個經文嘅喎。
So it's a common topic in the Bible.
所以喺聖經裏邊成日都提到㗎呢樣嘢。
People knew what sheep were.
所以咧，當時嘅人咧就知道乜嘢係羊啊。
People had sheep. People took care of sheep. People saw sheep.
佢哋咧有自己飼養羊啊、照顧羊啊，佢哋都見過羊啊。
There was a sheep on every corner.
周圍都係羊嘅。
People ate sheep.
佢哋亦都食啦
People
羊。
sacrificed sheep.
獻祭亦都用羊啦。
So it was something people knew something. So today I want to read a key passage about sheep in the New Testament.
今日咧，我哋就攞咗一個咧喺新約聖經咧一個好重要關於羊嘅經文嚟睇一睇。
It's from John chapter 10.
就係約翰福音10章。
And I first want to read the first 7 verses.
首先咧，我哋讀1至到7節。
Sorry, 1 to 6.
1至到6節。
John chapter 10, and I'll have the Chinese on the next slide. And this is Jesus speaking, and he's speaking to some religious leaders called Pharisees.
耶穌咧係講緊説話喎，向住啲法利賽人啦，一啲宗教領袖講緊説話。
Very truly I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. Jesus used this figure of speech, but the Pharisees did not understand what he was telling them.
約翰福音10章1至到6節，我實實在在告訴你們，那不從門進羊圈，倒從別處爬進去的，那人就是賊，就是強盜。那從門進去的才是羊的牧人，看門的給他開門，羊也聽他的聲音。他按着名字呼叫自己的羊，領他們出來。他把自己的羊領出來以後，就走在前頭，羊也跟隨他，因為認得他的聲音。他們決不會跟隨陌生人，反而逃避他，因為不認得陌生人的聲音。耶穌對他們說了這個比喻，他們卻不明白他所說的是什麼。
My English translation calls this a figure of speech. We could call it an object lesson or a comparison.
呢一度咧第六節咧，耶穌中文咧就係話比喻啦，即係或者係係咯比喻。
In Sunday school, we all often used to have an object lesson where the teacher would get a common object and then make a comparison with the common object with a spiritual point or a spiritual lesson.
喺主日學咧，成日都會用類似嘅方法嘅，就係會攞一樣咧大家熟悉嘅嘢，然後藉住嗰樣嘢嘅特性啊或者本質啊，就去引申到咧一啲屬靈嘅意義啊。
If you do that, you're in good company because that's what Jesus did. That's how Jesus taught.
如果你教主日學嘅時候咧係用呢個方法嘅咧，你就係同耶穌都一樣喎，你哋係 partner 嚟嘅喎。
And so we're gonna now. Jesus took this common everyday thing that everyone knew something about, the sheep, and he said something about them that everyone would have already known.
耶穌咧喺呢一度咧選擇羊呢一樣嘢，因為咧聽眾咧大家都熟悉呢一樣嘢啦。而當中咧嗰樣嘢嘅特性咧，啲聽眾都明白嘅喎，都知道嘅喎。
But people couldn't. The listeners didn't really get what he was trying to say.
但係聽眾咧聽完啦，係我明，但係你實際上係想講啲咩咧
And that's very understandable.
咁佢哋唔明白耶穌講乜嘢咧？呢件事情咧係好容易令人理解嘅。
If I told you out here there's a bus, it's white and green, and you can get on it and pay with your octopus card. It'll take you to Yuen Long or Sarang Soi or a few other places. And you pay when you get on if you're going to Yuen Long, and you pay when you get off if you're going to Sarang Soi. You will say, yeah, I know that.
如果我同你講啦，出邊啊有架白色嘅大嘅車，白色綠色嘅，你上車咧就要用八達通又得，用現金又得，可以去元朗又可以去上水喎。咁我講完成件事俾你聽啦，你可能就會話，我知你講乜，咁其實實際上你想表達啲乜嘢
？If I have a special point that I'm trying to make by telling you something you already know, you're not going to know what my special point is unless I tell you.
嗱，如果我係講一啲咧，你根本已經好熟嘅嘢啦，我講出嚟，咁但係咧我就如果我真係有一個動機，有一個重點係要話俾你聽嘅話咧，我就一定要講埋出嚟，你先至會明白點解我要講一啲咧你熟悉嘅嘢俾你聽。
Therefore, Jesus carried on.
於是咧，耶穌咧就繼續啦。
Therefore, Jesus said again, "Very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full."
約翰福音第10章7節。於是耶穌又說：我實實在在告訴你們，我就是羊的門。所有在我以先來的，都是賊和強盜，羊卻不聽從他們。我就是門，如果有人藉着我進來，就必定得救，並且可以出，可以入，也可以找到草場。賊來了，不過是要偷竊、殺害、毀壞。我來了，是要使羊得生命，並且得更豐盛。
I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep.
耶穌繼續講啦，我是好牧人，好牧人為羊捨命。那作僱工不是牧人的，羊也不是自己的。他一見狼來，就把羊撇下逃跑，狼就抓住羊群，把他們驅散了，因為他是個僱工，對羊群漠不關心。
I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life, only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down, and authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father.
耶穌話：我是好牧人，我認識我的羊，我的羊也認識我，好像父認識我，我也認識父一樣。並且我為羊捨命。我還有別的羊不在這羊圈裏，我必須把他們領來，他們也要聽我的聲音，並且要合成一群，歸於一個牧人。父愛我，因為我把生命捨去，好再把它取回來。沒有人能奪去我的生命，是我自己捨去的。我有權把生命捨去，也有權把它取回來。這是我從我的父所領受的命令。
I think a good way to approach this passage is to ask who the people are who are involved.
一開始咧去理解呢一段經文咧，我哋可以睇下咧當中涉及幾多班唔同嘅人。
So I can group them into 4 groups of people or people or groups of people.
有4樣嘢。4個人咯，4類人啊或者。
So there are, in this passage that we just read, there are thieves and robbers and strangers.
第一樣咧就係賊啦，盜賊啦，同埋陌生人。
That's one group. The next person is the hired hand.
第二樣咧就係僱工。
And there's the group who are the sheep.
第三樣咧就係羊。
And then one more, the person, Jesus. Or the gate, that's one group.
咁咧最後嗰類咧就係
shepherd or the gate.
就係牧人或者係咧嗰道門啦，就係屬於同一類噶。
And just for a quick preview, those first group, the thieves, robbers, strangers, hired hand, are represent some kind of bad religious leaders of some kind.
第一類啦，賊啦，盜賊啊，陌生人啊，係講緊呢一啲唔好嘅宗教領袖。
And the hired hand too.
仲有咧就係請翻嚟嗰個牧人啊，請翻嚟嗰個僱工啊。
The sheep are Christians.
羊咧就係基督徒啦。
And the shepherd or the gate is Jesus.
好牧人咧同埋嗰道門咧就係耶穌基督啊。
So let's first talk about the thieves and robbers and strangers.
首先咧，我哋睇下第一類啦，就係嗰啲賊啊，嗰啲陌生人。
Who are they?
佢哋係咩人呢？
Jesus said at that time, up to his point, there's those who had come before him.
耶穌咧喺嗰段經文嗰度，我哋睇到啦，就係佢哋咧早於耶穌出現嘅。
Their purpose in coming is to harm the sheep.
佢哋點解要嚟啊？就係要去傷害啲羊嘅啫。
Another way we could say that is their characteristic is they don't love the sheep.
或者咧，我哋由此咧睇到嗰啲盜賊咧係唔愛嗰啲羊噶。
And they have to sneak in over the wall.
佢咧偷爬過埲牆入嚟嘅。
They don't come in directly, honestly, up front.
唔係堂堂正正咁樣入嚟嘅。
They have to sneak in some way.
而係鬼鬼祟祟咁樣入嚟。
And so these would represent religious leaders, bad religious leaders, or other people who are claiming to be the Messiah or the Savior.
我哋可以理解為咧一啲好差嘅宗教領袖啦，或者一啲咧佢哋話自己係救主或者係彌賽亞嘅人。
Jesus says that stranger, the sheep don't listen to the stranger. They don't recognize his voice.
經文嗰度咧，耶穌提到咧，就係羊咧係唔認得陌生人嘅。
And I would say we still have these sort of people today.
羊係唔認得陌生人嘅聲音啦。咁我哋可以話咧，現今咧都仲有呢一啲人喺度喎。
They're bad religious leaders who don't love people in their church, and their purpose is not to help them, but to harm them.
就係而家咧，現今世代都有呢一類人㗎，就係一啲好差嘅、唔好嘅宗教領袖，佢哋唔愛羊群嘅，唔愛啲嘅信徒，佢淨係想去傷害佢哋嘅啫。
They've come to take advantage of them.
又或者咧係淨係想從中得到益處嘅。
And often that is in terms of money.
從中得到益處啦，咁可能就係錢啦。
Others you hear about people who claim to be the Messiah or God or Jesus. We hear about this once in a while. Someone appears who says, "I'm Jesus. I've come back, and I'm Jesus," and that might be a man or a woman. 間中咧都會有無論係男同埋女咧，都會有人出現咧，話自己就係嗰個彌賽亞，話自己咧係基督喎。So I say we still have these sort of people today.
所以我哋話咧，現今咧都有呢啲人啊。
The second person in this passage is the hired hand.
第二類咧就係請翻嚟嘅人啦，就係僱工。
What's his characteristic?
佢又有啲咩特性咧
Well, he doesn't love the sheep enough to lay down his life for them.
就係咧，佢哋對羊嘅愛咧唔足夠，叫佢哋咧為羊捨命。
You could say another way, he loves himself more than he loves the sheep.
你亦都可以話咧，佢愛自己多過愛啲羊啊。
You understand what this is? The hired hand is the one who's there. He's supposed to be protecting the sheep.
嗱，呢一啲僱工咧，其實請佢哋翻嚟咧，佢哋應該咧就要保護啲羊嘅。
But when the big bad wolf comes and said, little pig, let me in.
但係當狼來了嘅時候咧
that's a big scary bad wolf. And the hired hand says, it's not really worth it for me to try to take him on. Not worth it.
咁個僱工咧，即係請翻嚟嗰人，可能就話吓唔值得咧，要同隻狼打過喎。
My life isn't worth the little bit of pay I'm going to make today for doing this job. It's not worth it.
我份人工咁奀，唔值得為咗咁奀嘅人工去咁樣揾命搏啊。
So when the wolf comes over this wall, he jumps over the other wall, jumps on his bicycle and rides as fast as he can the other way.
當狼咧跳入羊群嘅時候咧，同時間咧僱工咧就跳出羊群喎，即刻快走啦。
So this represents another kind of religious leader.
僱工咧亦都代表咧另一類嘅宗教領袖。
Not as bad as the thieves and robbers. Not that bad. Not that level of badness.
佢哋未至於差到咧，好似之前我哋講嗰類唔好嘅宗教領袖咁。
But it's the kind that can't take the pressure when the going gets tough.
但係咧呢個僱工就令我哋理解為咧當有困難嚟到啦，佢哋咧就應付唔到啊。
How many preachers went to Bible college, got a job in a church, and quit?
有一啲咧牧師啦，佢哋咧一開始由神學院度畢業啦，即係讀完書出到嚟喺教會度有一個侍奉嘅崗位，但係咧佢哋最終咧放棄。
I don't mean quit that church. I mean quit that career and said, I'm going to go get another job. I'm going to change careers because this is just not worth it.
我哋講緊咧唔係話辭咗呢一個教會嘅侍奉崗位去第二個侍奉崗位喎，而係咧佢直情轉行啊，覺得咧我寧願做第二啲嘢啦，都唔咁樣去牧養神嘅羊群啊。
There is a lot of turnover.
其實咧牧師啊或者傳道人啊呢啲崗位咧都好多時候啲人都辭職啊，跟住又請第二個啊咁樣。都循環，即係成日都會有嘅。
Let's not say preachers. Let's say anyone who has decided and made a commitment to say, "I will be in this ministry for you, Lord, to serve you in this ministry." And when the going gets tough, says, "It's not worth it."
就算唔講牧師、傳道人呢啲崗位啊，有一啲人咧願意咧全時間奉獻俾上帝去服侍上帝嘅。但係到一段時間之後咧，佢哋都決定放棄啦，覺得咧唔值得啊。
You know, well, a lot of preachers aren't paid well, and that doesn't help.
咁咧，即使
it's not worth the salary I'm making. Put up with this garbage.
即使咧有啲牧師或者傳道人，佢哋咧個薪酬好好嘅喎，佢哋都覺得唔可以呢個薪酬都留唔到佢啦。
But forget salary. Many people in the church doing ministry are volunteers.
但係撇開咧呢啲受薪嘅全時間奉獻嘅神嘅工人啦，教會裏邊咧都好多咧義務工作嘅義務，即係冇金錢報酬嘅弟兄姊妹侍奉緊啊。
All this trouble, and I don't even get paid. It's not worth it.
當遇到困難嘅時候，可能佢話吓。我義務嘅啫喎，搏唔過又。
Jesus said, "The one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is not fit for service in the kingdom."
耶穌講過咧，就係手扶着犁往後看嘅，不配進神的國。
So admittedly, it's not an easy job. Who wants to fight off wolves all day?
無可否認咧，呢件工作唔容易㗎。你見到狼喎，你要同佢打過喎。
But what's the difference? Do you love the sheep?
但係個重點就係你愛唔愛啲羊先。
If you love the sheep, it doesn't matter. It will be worth it. You will stay and you will fight wolves and lions and bears because you love the sheep.
如果你真係咁愛啲羊嘅話，無論出現嘅係狼又好、紅人又好、咩都好，你都獅子又好，你都係會同佢打過㗎。
And jump ahead just a little bit. The Good Shepherd Jesus did love the sheep that much.
然後咧，我哋再諗到我哋嘅好牧人耶穌基督啦，佢真係愛羊，愛到一個咁嘅地步，係願意咧，即係去為羊咧去打過喎。
Not at all like a religious leader who does the job, but it's just a job.
但係咧，有一啲宗教領袖咧，就視為咧呢個只係一份工啫。
We have these kind today.
今日咧，我哋都有呢一啲人嘅。
You don't even need to believe in Jesus to be a preacher in a church and get paid and speak. You don't have to. Not in some churches. It's just a job.
係啊，我都聽過，就係咧有啲人咧，佢甚至唔信神嘅喎，不過佢有聖經嘅知識，所以佢即係佢又喺神學院畢業，所以佢可以有資格去攞到呢一份工啊，所以對佢嚟講只係一份工嚟嘅啫。
The next group are the sheep.
第三類人啊，就係羊。
Now, if you come up to Jesus' time when he said sheep, who he was talking about were the Jewish people.
當耶穌咧喺佢嗰個時代啦，提起羊嘅時候咧，大部分嘅聽眾咧都係猶太人嚟喎。
Those chosen people of God, God's children, the Israelites, the Jewish people were God's, what the Old Testament refers to as God's sheep, and what Jesus meant when he said sheep the first time.
當耶穌第一次提起羊啦，就係向啲猶太人啦、以色列人啦，即係神所揀選嘅子民，其實就係代表佢哋嘅。
What very interesting what Jesus says here, What Jesus said here is, he says, I have other sheep, and I'm going to go find those other sheep, and I'm going to bring those other sheep into the sheep pen too.
但係有趣嘅係，耶穌睇到佢有啲羊咧唔喺呢個羊圈裏邊，佢要將嗰啲羊都領埋入去呢一度噃。
So who are those sheep?
咁其實咁講緊係邊一類人啊？
Well, those sheep are you and me.
就係你同我啊。
So that's why, as we read and think about what Jesus says about sheep here, we can consider that the sheep are Christians today. The sheep represent you and me, Christians of all races, sizes, shapes, and colors.
今日咧，羊咧已經唔係淨係代表以色列人或者猶太人啦，而係咧代表咧所有基督徒啦。無論佢嘅國籍係啲乜嘢啊，性別係啲乜嘢啊，身形啊，年紀啊。
What does Jesus say about these sheep? He says that they know the shepherd intimately.
耶穌點樣去形容呢一啲羊咧？呢啲羊咧對真正嘅牧人，即係佢哋同真正牧人嗰個關係咧，好親密嘅喎。
They know Jesus as well as Jesus knows God. How well does Jesus know God the Father? Well, they're also one. They know each other very well, intimately. There's nothing they don't know very well.
羊認識好牧人耶穌基督嗰個認識程度咧，係深入到咧等同於耶穌認識天父嗰種親密程嗰個深入程度喎。可想而知係幾咁親密咧。
The sheep follow the shepherd because they know his voice.
點解羊係跟隨好牧人啊？因為認得佢把聲。
I've heard that sheep are short-sighted. I've heard.
我聽過咧，羊咧係近視㗎。
I'm not a shepherd. I don't know sheep well, but I've heard that sheep are short-sighted. Maybe it's that wool hanging over their eyes.
Maybe what?
The wool hanging over their eyes. Their hair.
哦，喎，
Wool.
咁咧點解話佢係近視咧？唔知係咪因為啲羊毛遮住咗佢對眼啊？
So how and maybe they're not like dogs with a very good sniffer.
又或者咧，佢哋唔似狗一樣咧個嗅覺咁靈敏，
But they got good ears.
但係咧佢哋隻耳仔好好嘅。
And that's how they follow the shepherd. They know the shepherd, and they know the shepherd's voice. So when they hear this guy, he might be a little bit fuzzy, and they can't make out the details of his face, but they know that's his voice. His voice is unique, and they follow that guy.
雖然咧佢哋睇得唔係好清楚啦，可能朦朦朧朧見到對方啊，但係咧認得佢把聲啊，就可以咧跟隨到咧真正嗰個牧人啊。
And if you're a sheep tourist walking around the fields of sheepland, and you want to take a selfie with the sheep, and you say, "Here's sheepy sheep." You've got the wrong voice. What's the sheep going to do?
如果你咧入到羊群啊，梗係要自拍一張擺上 Facebook 㗎啦，係咪？咁啊，你就同羊講啦，羊仔過嚟啦，咁啲羊會點啊？
What a cute little sheep.
哎呀，好得意喎，咁樣。
Sheep says, "Wrong voice. Bye bye," and he runs away.
隻羊一聽到你把聲就知道你唔係佢真正主人啦，咁梗係即刻走啦。
And I don't know sheep well, but I can imagine one sheep starts running, then suddenly a lot of sheep are running, scattered.
咁啊，可能咧一隻羊走開咧，其他啲羊咧就四散啦。
The sheep are run away from a stranger's voice. The sheep are under the protection of the shepherd.
羊仲有啲咩特性咧？就係牧人咧，好牧人咧就會保護啲羊。
Remember, that's his job to fight off the wolves.
因為呢個係牧人嘅職責嚟㗎嘛，就係要打低啲狼。
The sheep are cared for by the shepherd.
牧人咧係照顧啲羊嘅。
Why is the shepherd taking the sheep out?
點解牧人要帶羊出去啊？
To find them pasture, to find them some grass to eat, some water to drink. The shepherd takes care of them.
帶佢哋食草咯，飲水咯，就係去照顧佢哋咯。
Now, we're Christians. We're, we could say, God's sheep. We're Jesus' sheep.
我哋可以話咧，即係我哋基督徒咧，我哋可以話自己係神嘅羊。
Do you know your shepherd intimately?
但係你認唔認識你嘅牧人啊？耶穌基督啊？
Do you know his voice?
你知唔知佢把聲係點㗎？
You get confused when a strange voice comes and you can't distinguish between the voices and you're not sure if that's your shepherd's voice or the voice of a stranger who wishes you harm.
當有另外啲聲音出現嘅時候，你有冇能力去分辨邊一個先係你主人嘅聲音啊？
Well, we're not going to automatically know our shepherd's voice. Well, not automatic.
我哋唔會天生咧就或者唔會即刻咧就認得咧我哋主人耶穌基督把聲嘅。
How do you get to know the shepherd's voice?
你點樣可以認得佢把聲咧？
Simple answer.
好簡單。
How do you get to know your shepherd's voice?
好簡單，點樣可以？
Simple answer. Anybody?
有冇人要
Be
試下
brave. Feeling? Hearing?
You listen more. You
Listen more?
Listen more.
你聽多
Yeah,
啲。
you
remember.
Yeah, if you listen to it every day, if you listen to it a lot, you get very familiar with it.
你如果每日都聽嘅，你自然會熟悉啦。
So, if I say, oh, I come into this flock, this group of Christians.
如果話咧我咧行入呢一個基督嘅羊群啊，即係行入去一班信徒當中。
And the sheep are gathered around the shepherd.
呢啲羊咧就黐住個牧人啦。
But I need to go run up the hill to smell a flower, eat a dandelion.
You as one of the sheep.
Yes.
嗱，如果你咧係神羊群嘅其中一隻羊仔啦，咁啊你就 離開咗個牧人咧，自己走上山去玩喎。
Every day I take a picnic basket with some cheese and wine to the top of the mountain and fly a kite.
如果你每一日咧都拎住個野餐盒啊，帶支紅酒啊、芝士啊上山度啊，又玩啊，又放風箏啊咁樣。
Every day I'm at the top of the hill in the sun and the sheep are in the valley with the shepherd. I can't hear the shepherd's voice. I don't hear it every day. And very soon I can't remember what the shepherd's voice sounds like.
每一日你都係咁樣喎，遠離你嘅牧人喎，好快咧你就唔記得佢把聲㗎。
And one day I go back down the hill and I can't even find the right sheep pen. And there I hear lots of shepherds calling, come here, come into the pen. It's nighttime. And I don't know which one is my shepherd anymore.
可能當有一日你終於捨得去落山嘅時候，你都唔認得你個主人喎，你周圍都聽到有人話羊仔過嚟啦，你都唔知道邊一個先係你真正嗰個主人。
You're just inviting confusion into your life.
如果你咧咁樣日日走上山咁樣去玩咧，你只係會其實係你係令到自己好混亂啫。
You might fall prey to a false prophet dressed up as a sheep, but inwardly is a ravenous wolf. Matthew 7:15.
喺馬太福音第7章15節提到咧，可能我哋咧會遇到一啲假嘅先知啊，或者係披住羊皮嘅狼。
How do you know the real from a counterfeit?
我哋點樣分辨真假咧
？You could spend all your if you're talking about money, like the $1,000. How do you know the real $1,000 bill from the false $1,000 bill?
如果我俾一張偽鈔你，或者俾一張銀紙你，你點樣分辨佢係真定假
？There are two ways.
有兩個辦法嘅。
You could study all of the fake ones.
第一個辦法咧就係你抄晒啲偽鈔出嚟，你知道晒佢哋啲特徵。
You can become friends with the gangsters who make the fake ones.
咁你咧就可以成為咧做偽鈔嗰啲人嘅好朋友啦，因為你咁熟啲偽鈔。
And you really know the fake ones really well.
你對於咧偽鈔係點嘅樣咧，你好熟悉。
This will take you some time.
咁既然有咁多種唔同嘅偽鈔，你當然要花啲時間啦。
That's one way.
呢個係第一個辦法。
Another way is to just spend all your time handling the real $1,000 bills.
第二個辦法咧係就係你只係用你嘅時間去睇真嗰張鈔票。
And as soon as a false one comes in your hand or you look at it, you know it because you know the real one so well that the tiniest bit of difference will set off alarm bells in your head.
你因為咧對真嗰張咧係異常熟悉、非常熟悉啊，所以一有張假嘅，無論佢以任何嘅形式出現咧，你都知道係假嘅。
Well, you can guess which way I think is best.
頭先講到嗰兩個辦法咧，你咁聰明一定知道咧邊個辦法係更加好啦。
Make up your own mind.
你可以自己做決定。
But following the real shepherd is good.
跟隨咧真正嘅牧人咧係好事。
You're saved from the wolves.
因為佢會保護你免受羊嘅攻擊。
You have protection and food.
你亦都得到佢俾食物俾
你。You have all you need, and Jesus here calls it an abundant life.
你需要啲乜嘢你都有喎，而且咧你有一個豐盛嘅生命。
One more
仲有一樣
person in this passage, that's Jesus.
最後第四類人啊，或者第四個人啊，就係耶穌基督啦。
And he describes himself as in two different ways here. The first way, he says, I am the gate.
喺個比喻當中咧，佢咧有兩個角色喎。第一個角色咧就係佢就係嗰道門。
Now you see this picture I found. There's a shepherd there, and he's sitting in the gate.
你見到咧呢一個圖咧，牧人咧坐喺個門嗰度。
What Jesus said, Jesus mentions a gatekeeper. So here there's a gatekeeper. There's someone there who opens the gate for the shepherd.
有開門嘅人啦，就係咧開門嘅人咧就會開門俾牧人。
But Jesus says, I am the gate.
但係耶穌喺呢度係講自己就係嗰道門啊。
So what's the gate?
即係咩咧？
The gate is the place that the sheep go in and out of the pen.
門咧就係容讓羊可以入又可以出嘅。
What does that represent?
即係乜嘢啊？
Going in is a place where you go in for protection.
你入去就得到保護。
Going out is the place where you go out for your food.
你出去就得到食物。
What does that represent for us?
套喺我哋身上咧，又代表啲
I
咩
said
咧
it a different way just before, but the gate is the way where you go in for protection. That means that's where you go and you're saved from. You're saved.
既然咧門咧係可以保護到你啦，即係話咧你可以藉住佢得救啊！
Here come the wolves. I can't whistle. Come in sheep, and the sheep run in, and the gate's shut, and the shepherd's there with his staff, and the sheep are saved. That's where you go in for protection. That's where you're saved.
即係話譬如咧，你喺個草場上邊啦，哇有狼出現啦，牧人咧就趕啲羊就係話快啲翻入羊圈啊！咁羊咧就藉住道門，咁入翻羊圈咧就得到保護。
Jesus is the gate because he saves us.
耶穌就係嗰道門，因為佢可以保護我哋，係讓我哋得救嘅。
Jesus is the gate because when we go it through the other direction, we go out for food. That's the way we go for our spiritual nourishment.
如果我哋藉住耶穌咧去出去，咁我哋可以得到豐盛嘅生命，亦都可以得到食物。
And that's what Jesus calls a full life.
呢個咧係耶穌講豐盛嘅生命啊。
Jesus calls himself immediately following as the good shepherd.
耶穌咧話自己係好牧人。
And in contrast to those other people before, the thieves and robbers, strangers and hired hand, Jesus, what's his characteristic? He has the best interests of the sheep at heart.
對比咧，頭先我哋講早於耶穌出現嘅嗰啲盜賊啊，就係咧耶穌呢個好牧人咧係更加愛啲羊啊。
He hasn't come to harm you and steal your money.
耶穌嚟咧唔係要毀壞，亦都唔係要傷害。
What's he come to do?
佢嚟到係要乜嘢啊？佢唔係要偷竊、殺害、毀壞。
What he says in this context, he's come to give us a good, full, and abundant life.
耶穌嚟咧係要俾你一個美好、豐盛嘅生命。
How is that different from the gate? Just a slightly different angle. He leads us to these things. As the shepherd, he leads us to these places that we need to go.
同樣咧，佢唔單止係道門啊，佢仲係身懷有好嘅牧人啊！呢個牧人咧就係帶領啲羊咧進入嗰道門，進入個羊圈。
Not necessarily literally, but figuratively, he leads us to where we need to go.
佢雖然咧佢唔係實質企喺我哋前邊帶我哋前行啦，但係咧佢引領我哋咧係生活個方向。
And when the wolf comes, Jesus will not run away like the hired hand.
當狼嚟嘅時候咧，呢位好牧人咧唔會走咗去㗎。
He stands and protects the sheep from the wolf.
佢留翻喺度，要去保護啲羊同埋同啲狼打過。
And if the danger is so great that he needs to lay down his life to save the sheep, that is what he will do.
甚至咧個危險係好，即係甚至喺好危險嘅境地咧。佢亦都樂意，佢亦都願意為羊捨棄佢嘅生命。
Now, who does this? Who does this?
邊個可以做得到咧
Who does it? Who besides Jesus? Besides Jesus, who does this?
除咗耶穌之外咧，邊個會做得到啊？
Nowadays, in your life, in this society, in this culture, who lays down their life for someone?
喺現今嘅社會，喺你嘅生命當中，有邊一啲人，有邊一類人咧係能夠做得到為咗另外一個人咧而去捨棄自己嘅生命咧？
Well, not many. Not many. There are a few.
唔係好多人做得到。
There are a few. A parent may lay down his life to save his child.
父母會做得到啦。
A very dedicated bodyguard might jump in front of a bullet. Really, this happened to save the president of the U.S.
係。
It's happened. it happens, but it's not common. It makes the news when it happens.
總統嘅保鏢可能會做得到啦，有子彈嚟到佢就會用自己嘅肉身去擋啦。
And there's another difference. When people do that today, they do it for those they love.
現今嘅社會咧，如果有人真係做得到嘅話，其實佢都係為着佢愛嘅人先至做得到。
They don't do it for their enemies.
佢哋唔會為敵人咁做㗎。
That would be really big news.
如果佢哋為敵人咁樣做咧，就真係一個大新聞啦。
But Jesus says, the New Testament says, while we were yet sinners, while we were God's enemies, Jesus died for us.
但係喺新約聖經咧話，我哋仲係罪人嘅時候，仲係上帝嘅敵人嘅時候，耶穌咧已經為我哋捨命。
And here's another thing: if you're if I lay down my life for one of my children, I've laid down my life and it's gone, and I'm dead and I'm gone, and that's it.
如果咧我為咗我自己嘅仔女咧捨棄生命啦，我捨棄咗我生命，我就冇噶咯喎。
I don't have the authority. I may willingly lay down my life, but I don't have the authority to take it back.
即使我係樂意捨棄我自己嘅生命，但係我冇能力咧去攞翻嚟嘅。
But Jesus does.
但係耶穌咧就係有能力啦。
And he willingly laid down his life for you and me.
耶穌咧係樂意為你同我捨棄佢嘅生命。
He laid it down and he was gone for 3 days.
佢咧捨棄咗佢嘅生命3日咁多。
And then he took it back.
然後佢有權柄可以攞翻嚟。
He's alive and he's searching for you. He's searching for any lost sheep who have wandered off. He's searching for them and wants to bring them into his flock, into his protection.
今日佢依舊活着，係繼續咧去尋找咧所有佢失喪嘅羊群，要帶翻佢哋咧翻去羊圈嗰度。
In Jesus' flock, there is spiritual protection, salvation, and nourishment.
喺耶穌嘅羊圈裏邊咧，有屬靈嘅滋養，有屬靈嘅保護，有屬靈嘅拯救。
So maybe you don't know his voice well now. Listen for it.
今日可能你仲未熟悉佢嘅聲音啊，請你聽多啲啊。
And if you're in the flock, don't shut your ears. Listen to Jesus' voice every day.
如果你已經喺羊圈裏邊咧，你都唔好收埋你對耳仔啊，多啲聽耶穌嘅聲音，每一日都聽。
Become intimately connected with him.
同耶穌咧建立一個親密嘅關係。